Hello and welcome to everyone joining us right now. My name is Jessica Paul and I'm the manager of Monroe's Books in Victoria, BC. I am thrilled to present tonight's event in celebration of National Poetry Month, featuring three talented BC poets, Yvonne Blomer, Michelle Poirier Brown, and Arleen Paré. I would like to acknowledge that Monroe's Books stands on the territories of the Lekwungen peoples, now known as the Esquimalt and Songhees nations, whose relationships to this land continue to this day. We at Monroe's Books endeavor to promote education and awareness about the history and continuing effects of colonialism in Canada. Before the pandemic began, we were hosting one or two events a week, mostly in person, well, all in person. We didn't do anything virtual. It had never even occurred to us that virtual events were a possibility. Of course, we are very hopeful that we will be able to return to in-person events by the fall, but in the meantime, virtual events have really allowed us to continue to promote and celebrate authors and their new work when it hasn't been safe to gather in person like we used to. In fact, it has opened up many opportunities to host authors near and far. In fact, in the last year alone, we have hosted authors from as far away as England and Switzerland. Tonight, our authors are a little bit more local. Yvonne Blomer and Arleen Paré are joining us from Victoria, but Michelle Brown has recently moved away from the island and is joining us from the interior of BC. As you know, April is National Poetry Month, a celebration which began in the US in 1996, spearheaded by the Academy of American Poets on the steps of a post office in New York City. There, the story goes, Academy staff members handed out copies of T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, which begins, "April is the cruelest month," to individuals waiting in line to mail their tax returns. Established in Canada in 1998, National Poetry Month now brings together schools, publishers, booksellers, literary organizations, libraries, and poets from across the country to celebrate poetry and its vital place in Canada's culture. Each of the three poets tonight are reading from their new collections published this spring. They will not be taking questions at the end, but please feel free to post comments in the chat, which you can access by clicking the chat icon at the bottom of your screen. You will also find a link in the chat to purchase signed copies of the featured books tonight. We do have signed copies of all of them, so make sure you get your signed copy before they're all gone. Starting us off tonight is Yvonne Blomer. Yvonne is an award-winning poet and memoirist and is the author of the travel memoir Sugar Ride and 4 books of poetry, most recently, The Last Show on Earth. She works as an editor, teacher, and mentor in poetry and memoir. Yvonne served as the City of Victoria Poet Laureate from 2015 to 2018, and in 2017, she edited the anthology Refugium, Poems for the Pacific, and in 2020, Sweetwater, Poems for the Watersheds, both with Caitlin Press. The anthology Hologram for PK Page, which Yvonne co-edited, is forthcoming from Ecstasis Editions. Yvonne lives, works, and raises her family on the traditional territories of the Saanich, Songhees, and Esquimalt peoples of this Coast Salish nation. And now, here to read from her new collection, The Last Show on Earth, is Yvonne Blomer. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Jessica. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm really delighted to be reading at Monroe's or through Monroe's, and delighted also to be reading with Michelle and Arleen for Poetry Month. The Last Show on Earth is a book that touches on family and grief, climate change, and animals. And I thought I would focus on sort of the circus elements of The Last Show on Earth, but April, cruel though it may be, is also my son's birth month. So I'm going to read a few poems with him that touch on him. And I thought I would start the book with the opening quote, which is from William Butler Yeats, his poem, The Circus Animal's Desertion. A mound of refuse or the sweepings of a street, old kettles, old bottles, and a broken can, old iron, old bones, old rags. Now that my ladder's gone, I must lie down where all the ladders start, in the foul rag and bone shop of the heart. And I thought I would touch on why circus, the theme or idea, with the title The Last Show on Earth, which is a bounce off the old movie, The Greatest Show on Earth. And that all comes from the opening poem, which is a poem out of a series of poems I wrote in response to The Art of Robert Bateman. And that was one of the final great things I got to do as the City of Victoria's Poet Laureate. And this poem is called Circus Moon, Circus Train, and it's after Bateman's painting Circus Train Nighthawks. Candy wrapper moon, split-winged hawks, circus train. A dragon silver and gold scaled its lashing tail. How tent and train drew coin from candy flossed hands, teased in by popcorn's buttery scent. This beast once chuntered across borders. Now the moon an opening in night where blue gray puce seep in. Here and then gone, a shadow, a species moving on a field you see and look for again. Faithful swaying servant, rolling, articulated, it carried animals and humans, mover of low moans and quick laughter. Every rail and tie a rehearsal for the last show on earth. Waning moon, night-stilled hawk, broken-spined serpent, the oiled skin and painted smiles of ballerina, clown, strongman shine through ghost shapes in splintered shafts. Light on this reptilian ride, absence of whistle on a field where a kid stands, frayed jeans, eyes roll to sky as puffed breath moves on wind. Luminous empty moon, feral moon, night's coming, coming in. So my son will be 16 this year, which is a little bit hard to believe. And he was born with a rare genetic syndrome. And this poem kind of explores that and many other things. It's a longer poem, and it's called Things to Chew On. Part of his syndrome, which is called Prader-Willi syndrome, is an insatiable appetite or a deep hunger that people who have it have. And my son doesn't seem to have that as bad as he could, which is a great relief. And the poem begins with, is dedicated or is after Sue Elmsley, another Canadian poet, and is inspired by a quote and poem by Denise Riley, who writes, "Each child gets cannibalized by its years." Things to chew on. Oh child, I would eat you up, nibble even when I don't mean to, as if you are a bowl of almonds left out. I scoop, finger stir, chew on you with my mama teeth. Unable to latch on, your teeth cut gums broke out sharp as a scream and bit my nipple. You would not open your mouth, pain a nail through my conviction, bottle-fed baby, those teeth split us. Never colicky, no long late walks to get you to sleep. We were on stimulation schedule. Help you get milk from the pesky bottle. Rhythmic breast pump, a sound we all quickened to. Wake, dance, sing, dangle toys, chew toys, nursing pillow, merely a prop for tummy time. Diagnosis, Prader-Willi syndrome. Key feature, insatiable appetite. Oh, hungry child, you've chewed the button off your shirt, off your snowman, pulled threads from couch cushions, licked the table clean, felt pens bitten, fingers bitten, food hidden and still the whole of the day. Were you 3.5 or 4 to the autism clinic for testing? All the forms I filled in felt like a list of parent failures chewing through me, a second label to stick on you. We hesitated at the door, toys on the floor, way in the distance, past all the white coats with glasses, pens, clipboards, all of them eyeing us. Look how he's watching those fish on the mobile, the doc said, as if to explain this new label. He loves things that dangle from string, I said, picking at its edges. How do you know it's not the Prader-Willi syndrome? We don't, he said, showing his teeth. Which came first, the mother in me or the baby? The worry, a stone I can't chew through, or the joy, pollen on my skin? Am I writing this to you? What will you do with it? Feel teen embarrassed or shrug, raise your emphatic eyebrows, mischievously grin, or chew through another puzzle piece. Tell me what number we're on, how our days are numbered. Silent, soft-voiced, singing one, I begin to dream again your speaking voice, smooth and low, a warm, hesitant hum in the deep knowing. Every part of you feels elastic, feels glass, wolf howl, wolf tooth, fish scales, fish flesh. You sign fish. Taco to the man at Cafe Mexico. Touch the sugared chips in a basket. Sold, the man says. I watch you fend for yourself, little sparrow. Menu plan, eat, learn full or fall or fly. Say no, no, no. Deny this hunger. I am lying on your trampoline in the sun, a kind of hammock. Birds dip and sip from the garden. What will follow when I am gone, gone? Floppy, failure to thrive, perseverance, hyperphagia, low IQ, high functioning. I tell the docs, I do not like the language we must live in. Shut up for a second. Quit feeding us from this bitter jargon. 14 now. I see new families and wonder how we got here. Once your newborn foot fit in my hand. Now I slip your Crocs on, turn the compost as a cloud swallows the overfed moon. Pelagic cormorant, and pelagic means open sea. This is, my son does not wander, but this was a fear when he was quite little. The child tends to wander, takes his wooden dinghy, shoves off. The mother makes him tie a line to the shore, watches his oars lift and push, feels a tug below her navel. Doesn't see him catch a fish with his small net, slice it and gut it, and under his seat, store it. Doesn't see him loosen the knot, bump the safety buoys at the harbor's exit. So part of the kind of circus idea is poems that are suggestive of magic or slightly surreal, and that next one touches on that. It's called numerology. Clouds roll in across an Alberta sky. You stand in the school field, spring, PE, soccer, Friday the 13th. Nothing comes of daydreams, longing, grass stains on knees, short shorts uncomfortable, and the PE teacher, a leech. You live under the sky of mystery. Anything can happen. Everything can change. Hum in your fingertips and in your brain. You walk the field open to whatever mystery. Goal left unguarded as light seeps in streams across the sky. What you see is aura, the in-between, things sliding from there to here. One girl's feet seem to lift off the ground. She throws her hands out, steadies herself, then kicks the ball back into the field, laughing. You catch your breath and stare, then slip home, watch for cracks in the sidewalk and in the green screen. A dog howls, arches his back in pain. Your mother leaves a note you cannot read. Father searches your sister's room for clues to where she could be. Where could she be? That shaft of light she left in. The dog's howl, a sign. A ball arches across a field, hits you in the face. Get a move on, the PE teacher snarls. Grass stains on your cheek. An owl in a distant tree, a willow branch dipping to the earth. Your imagination hurtles back. You are an only child. The stars drain out of the night sky. Things slip in, they slip out. Hum on skin, hairs on end. The names for things only imagined are the names of children never seen. Last night, I read in front of a live audience, which was a wild experience. And right now I'm reading in my garden studio, which is also a wild experience. I hope everyone can hear me and is doing great. And thank you all for coming. A lot of the poems in the last show on Earth are pay homage to poets I've been reading. They're after certain poets, or they're poems that touch on reading another poet. So this is one of those. Dinner party, reading Odysseus Aletus, who is a Greek poet. 7 people and a candle in the white hand of a girl. Figs dipped in red wine. The woman, her sandstone hair. Moss, moon, tin pail, old man, monastery, dry earth, donkey. Lost in the fortune telling. Lost in the fortune telling is the woman. By evening's end, every lizard word is slivered. Rye bread, currants, red mouths, laughter. Lost in the fortune telling is the man. In the ruin of wine, lost. Pear, quince jelly, red laughter, lupine beans in olive oil. Lost in rug of bergamot blue in the wood floor. Lost in candles, flicker on goat cheese. Lost. The next poem is also out of the series based on paintings by Robert Bateman. And the Bateman poem is called Long Light Polar Bear. And the poem is called Barfly. It's quite a serious poem, but it's very playful and was quite fun to write despite its seriousness. Barfly. Brawny one, you lean like some bloke at the bar, nose lifted to catch the scent of a bearded seal breathing a mile offshore. Maritime bear, your moans and chuffs blubber breath. Padded paws hold you to ice, ice, the hard stool you balance on. Air swigger, you whiff bourbon in spilled motor oil along the Arctic shore. a sweetness you cannot resist. Styrofoam crisps, plastic Twizzlers, rust from a car battery at the local dump. This want could kill you, you short-eared giant, you hunky boar, you statue carved from melt and salt. What will you binge on when winter does not come? Light is elemental as fur, you yellowing ice floe. Sun will melt you. And I'm going to end on a short one. I would very much like BC to stop killing wolves. So here's a short poem on that. Against the wolf cull. This wolf could be my now dead dog, my son, the bicycle I rode over 5,000 kilometers on. It could be the dream I had last night, the daffodils blooming in my garden. This wolf could be my monthly cycle, my mother now in a care home, the garbage I put out each week. It could be what I save of myself, each night the house quiet, my mouth a dark O of howl. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Those poems were absolutely stunning. Our next reader tonight is Michelle Brown. Michelle is an internationally published poet, performer, and photographer. She is Cree and a citizen of the Métis Nation. A feminist activist, now retired from careers as a speechwriter, conflict analyst, and federal treaty negotiator, she now writes full-time and has taken up birdwatching. She lives on unceded Syilx territory in Vernon, BC. You might be sorry you read this as Michelle's debut collection of poetry, and now I welcome her to read from it for you. Please welcome Michelle Brown.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Monroe's, for this long-held dream to come true. It is such an honor to be included on a night with such respected poets as Yvonne Blomer and Arleen Paré. I've chosen a strand of poems from the book that follow the theme of my complicated relationship with appearance and identity. But we begin on page 3 in childhood with God was a baby. It was Christmas Eve. The Christmas Eve astronauts read from Genesis as they circled the moon, and the world was agape, their eyes upward, everything exactly as it was yesterday, but the axis of knowledge tilted. We walked in the street, the star-sprinkled, hard-packed tracks no less sparkled than the fresh drifts brimming the sidewalks. I slid my boots along the wide ridges, imagined pirouettes, blades parting the surface, my pleated skirt a glimmering sheath beneath scarf and mitten-stuffed coat. God was a baby, a marvel circled the moon, the world made of diamond. Now, I know this is Poetry Month, and this is a book of poetry, but it also includes some prose pieces, and I'm going to read a prose piece next. The steel mill in this piece is the Manitoba Rolling Mill in Selkirk, Manitoba, where my father worked and my grandfather worked. And it might be of minor interest to know that my grandfather spoke very little English. He spoke mostly French. Her breath on my face. Marie-Louise Antonia Vigoureux was 3 years old when her mother died, and she was taken into the charge of the Sisters of Charity, or Grey Nuns, at the orphanage in St. Boniface. From toddlerhood until she was an adult woman, our grandmother lived in the protective world of the convent, a building that stands to this day, treasured as the first oak building in Western Canada. Louis Riel was schooled there, as were hundreds of children, some of them French Canadian, many of them, like my grandmother, Métis. She was not raised by a mother, a child finding her place among siblings. She slept in a dorm with other girls, spent time on her knees, both in prayer and washing floors, and found her place in a world ordered by the habits of nuns, something she mentioned as often as a veteran might mention the war. My grandmother's time within the sisterhood was so integral to her definition of self that it became part of my own identity. So much so that when asked to introduce myself by giving my name, where I was from, and say something that made me uncommon, my answer was almost inevitably, "My name is Michelle, and my grandmother was a nun." I said this because she said this. Everything about her she attributed either to being raised by the nuns or to being a nun. The nuns were the reason she was fluent in French and English and could write so well in both languages that she was sometimes asked to translate letters and legal documents. She followed the news closely and read nightly until 4 a.m. She was drawn to books on politics, history, and religion, and enjoyed especially the novels Exodus and The Shoes of the Fisherman. She made up for the late nights by sleeping until noon. She read Mein Kampf and cheered for dictators of all kinds. She made a point of buying South African wine during apartheid and prided herself for leading a band of scab steelworkers through the picket lines at the rolling mill, brandishing her way with a walking stick. She read Time magazine every week, passing it on to my father, underlined and bristling with marginalia about Khrushchev or the Pope. Fools! Nonsense! Ha! Fidel! I expect her convent childhood shaped my grandmother's personality as well as her interests. Frances, as she was known after her novitiate, was outspoken and irascible. In her outrage, often at my mother, she would pull the telephone from the wall and throw it into the garden. She was absolute about people, either showing them endless kindness, doing baskets of mending for them, giving them food, or you were dead to her. I remember long summer days beside her in the grape arbor, where she smoked through the day, playing Scrabble with anyone who came by. Her laugh harsh and loud, her hand warm on my cheek as she lowered her whiskered face and whispered, "Beautiful." Next poem is on page 46. And it's getting closer to poetry. It is a prose poem. What it's like to have my face. Starbucks at the north end of the first long table, facing the window. On the opposite side, at the south end, a man hunches over his smartphone, thumbs posed on either side, ready to scroll forwards, flip back. He chooses a video, leans in closer, volume low. From time to time, he peeks at me. If I look up toward the window behind him, he looks. My sight snags his glance and he looks away. Just now, I look up and my eyes across the street before he raises his head. And so he looks for a long time. Enough time to decide if my face connects us. And now, he doesn't look at me at all. Page 66. The prompt for this poem was to take very familiar imagery from a story, say a fairy tale or something like that, and use that as the basis for building something new in poetry. The poem is called Duck Ugly. In a corner of the attic, my husband has found the long lost box of photographs. To quell my ache, I have been seeing them as ashes. My eyes feel hungry. I wait days. Select a set of my face looking straight at the camera. Hold them close, long. The overexposed photo of my last night primigravida, my feet in a bowl of water and petals, my midwife seated on the floor, is not overexposed. She is merely very white beside me. I am the brown child at the birthday party. I am the brown child in the grade 4 picture. It is not shadow. It is not always summer. This round-faced girl with the winsome smile, slender and graceful young woman, again and again I find her as I search for an image to show me how I looked back in the days I was ugly. The next poem I'm going to read is on page 72. And I wrote this poem as part of a poetic inquiry I did in 2019. I received a grant from the First Peoples Cultural Council to travel the prairie homeland, pursuing the question, who would I know if I'd always known I was Cree? So for 67 days, I drove a 1987 Dodge B250 camper van around the prairies, the Métis homeland, starting in St. Vital, going through southern Manitoba, up through the center of Saskatchewan, through Batoche and far north, all the way up to Palm Bear Lake, and then coming back into Alberta, where I spent the last 6 days at Maskwacis. And for those not familiar with it, the red dress is the symbol for murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. Something purple. By the first day of powwow, I'd been on the land 3 days. Time enough to find my way around the arbor, time enough to make a friend or two, time enough to settle into drum beats, time to become a face in the stands. Day 2, I am offered tobacco. Will I pray? I take up the tobacco, wait for the red dress special. Pray for the families wrenched by sorrow. Pray for the women whose fates sicken. Pray for healing. Pray men join us. Return to my seat, arms filled with gifts. It rains the last day. The powwow moves indoor. Fancy dance bustles hang between panes of arena glass, eagle feather fans, beaded shields. Mothers discipline long brown locks into braids, lace brilliant breastplates into place, clip barrettes, tie chokers, add earrings. I buy a bag of Saskatoon berries from a couple with a cooler, lunch on berry-laden fry bread. Search the stands for the people I know. Gift them with salmon I brought for saying, "Moi stas, see you later." A woman I met before the dancing approaches me, stops my breath with shine and sparkle, her regalia magnifying her, magnificent. She offers to present me to the chief. His headdress humbles me, stumbles my tongue. He says, I am welcome to return, seals the invitation with a blanket, purple and tan, an orange stripe, black trim. I'm going to read 2 more poems, and they happen to be the last 2 poems of the book. So on page 78, and I actually restructured my reading list for tonight's specifically so I could read this poem for the launch of this book. In it, you'll meet two women. The grandmother, actually, you've already met before, the Métis grandmother, whose first language was French, and my maternal grandmother, whose first language was Ukrainian. The other grandmother. There were times I would sense the contours of my face. Perhaps I was tired, perhaps relaxed, would try to hold my features perfectly still, walk gently to a mirror to catch a glimpse of what I looked like in that state. Check if with that expression, I looked like my grandmother. Her long face, her flamboyant indifference, her mannishness, her brazen disregard for good taste in mixed company. Check. Was I ugly? There were times I tried to memorize the feeling of enough of a smile to lift the sag of my cheek, dull line of my mouth, brighten my brow with an arch, tried to recreate the image I would sometimes see walking along the glass wall of the bank or coming out of a toilet stall. A woman I didn't recognize, breathtakingly thin in a navy port suit. She'd show up in photos, the bull rush on the arm of a chair, white turtleneck, cable knit sheath, an arc of laughter. Who was she? Then yesterday, seated across from a mirror, a happenstance long look, the stranger surfaced, stayed. We had come to terms, my face and I. The grandmother I no longer sculpted away. And this one. Self-portrait of the poet. I just want to thank you all again for coming for this book launch. Thank you, Yvonne and Arleen, for agreeing to have me read with you. And thank you, Wondrous Books. Self-portrait of the poet. She reclines in bed in a room the color of red earth, against a silk pillow, the color of straw late on a September afternoon. She is dressed in a black sweater, her long hair a companion down her left side. Over her right shoulder, we see out a window, hawthorns, berries garnet, leaves still lush against the lit white sky. Her eyebrows are precise, dark arches, her ears larger than previous self-portraits. The light silvers her steel gray hair, brightens her skin, pores visible. Head slightly right, the skin of her neck drapes, her lip and chin nude of bristle. The eye of the self-portrait, the eye of one unafraid to look. What is to be found in this examination? We know nothing from a face. On what curve of cheek does the world see wife of an alcoholic? What detail points at tinnitus? Features, her features, are silent. The portrait says only one thing. Go ahead, look. Look as long as you like. Thank you.
Wow, that was just beautiful, Michelle. Thank you so much. Our last reader tonight is Arleen Paré. Arleen is the author of 7 collections of poetry, possibly more now. Actually, I didn't go back and double check that, including Paper Trail, Lake of Two Mountains, and He Leaves His Face in the Funeral Car. Her work has been shortlisted for the Dorothy Livesey Poetry Prize and has won the American Golden Crown Award for Poetry, the City of Victoria Butler Book Prize, a CBC Bookie Award, and a Governor General's Award for Poetry. She lives here in Victoria, BC. And now to read from her new collection, Time Out of Time, welcome Arleen Paré.
Thank you, Jessica. And thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Michelle. Beautiful readings. I am so delighted to be here with both of you reading from my new collection called Time Out of Time. And in order to locate this collection and why I was so interested in writing it, I'm going to read you a note, a prologue, so that you understand why I was doing this. In April 2021, so just a year ago, my friend and poet Maureen Hines, who lives in Toronto, suggested that I read a collection called Time by Etel Adnan. I had never heard of Etel Adnan. It was love at first page. The poems in Time are spare and exquisitely structured. And then I discovered the remarkable Etel Adnan herself. Born in 1925 in Beirut, she was the daughter of a Greek Christian mother and a Syrian Muslim father. She studied in France and she spoke several languages. Not only was she an internationally recognized poet and painter, she was also a novelist, a philosopher, a polyglot, a public intellectual, and a teacher. She won the Lambda Award for Lesbian Poetry, the California Book Award, and France's L'Ordre de Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres, among others. In her lifetime, she wrote over a dozen books in English, and she wrote other books in other languages. In 2020, Time won the Griffin Poetry Prize. Fully smitten, I have employed her poetics to shape this tribute collection. And then on the morning of November 14th, 2021, just before this book, Time Out of Time, went to print, Etel Adnan died in Paris, the city of light. She was 96. I was brokenhearted. I thought she would live forever. So when I say I have employed her poetics, I'm just going to shift this light a little bit so it's not too bad. There. When I say I employed her poetics to write, it means I really loved her styling so much that I wanted to write like her. So I have employed her style to write poems of my own in her way. And these poems I have just numbered. They have no title to them. Number 1, the first time is in an empty bank. 2 p.m., first page, masked. The pandemic empties out all ambient noise. The hush the pages make as they turn, untiming. The glass doors monumental onto the unpeopled street. Number 3, I would follow you anywhere. Leave the pear halved on the plate. Meet you at O'Hare or Heathrow or at Marrakesh Manur. Get lost once again or forever in your words, just your words, with or without any meaning, the shape of them in perfect translation. I don't even know what you look like. Number 4. Would I pursue her if she didn't play on the same team? If I knew what she looked like? Would I trail her into tentative darkness, follow her on a voyage of no return, track her to the edge of good and evil, stanza after sweet-smelling stanza with no punctuation, no question mark. Number 5. When she entrusts us to what's subterranean, will we find what's buried beneath? Beetles, broken glass, rats, root systems, teeth. When she says happiness is unbearable on page 67, despite how much we love her, does it deflect us from peace? She, a small, movable organism, bespeaking hope, even when hope is in hiding. Number 8. If you are lucky, in time, you will never stop smiling. Death is a collective perception, an unwavering bond, a staunch transformation. It will arrive. If you are lucky, you will die full of days. Is there anything that does not lead in this dreamy direction? Number 10. As if the one weather is worry, occasional breaks to blue sky, brief sunlight on sodden grass. The lyric will haunt me forever. I prefer not to travel. Sitting then at a table in southwestern France. Nor can I stray far from story. Overcast, cloud cover, periods of rain, no hope of location. Number 15. I take you to bed more than once, lights on. When else can be time? Is it a crime to interpolate, inveigle you? My soul of the world, spun gold, a form of fable. Some say you are inimitable. Mirror cell, on the blank page. Who among us is faultless, faithful, sufficiently sage? Number 21. Philosophies embellish her while languages endow her tongue. She's political, but not greedy. During the war, she refused to use French. There are sheep in the blue bloated sky, bloated, frothing in, floating out. A camel never goes dry. A tiger never goes hungry. Paris beds her while Greece, oh Greece, the sea there tenders her crowns of turquoise and gold, sea collars, salted white lace, riffled foam at slack tide. Which home is home? California is another dimension. I have slipped in some other poems. Most of these poems are in the style of Etel Adnan. I've slipped in a few poems that I have in my own style, and they have titles. And this one is called Pop Culture Number 1, and it comes with a head note. A head note is a quote from Terry Castle, who's a California academic. And it says, "Why is it so difficult to see the lesbian? In part because she has been ghosted or made to seem invisible by culture itself. In the last century, the 20th, the late 1990s, everyone wanted to be a lesbian. This may be an exaggeration, maybe not everyone, maybe not Pope St. Paul II, or John Ashbery, or Sarah Palin, but many, enough, lesbians being the media darlings of that period of time, TV, magazines, photo montages. The lesbian at last, at long, long last, becoming visible, transmuting the zeitgeist, a time out of time, refreshingly free of sham. If you can't bring back the past, in time, you can bring forth the future. Number 45. My life has not been riddled with bullets, nor has my house been burned to the ground. I have never been raped or beaten or thrown down a set of back stairs or drowned, nor does death hang from the trees where I live. Nevertheless, my head bears these facts. My mind contains reports from the 8 a.m. news, shootings, Miami, Kabul, a school in the suburbs, a knifing downtown. My mind doesn't stop at the edges of me. The world is a staggering place. The mind is a staggering world. Number 47. Parts of me are falling back into history, fading backward into the once upon. Irrelevance is not a complaint. I know a slender blue ribbon rivers my life. This is a recognition, a far-flung regard. There are still rivers. There are lakes of green water. The word love twins the word kind. The 21st century tapers now into reckoning, reconcile. I try to live in the present, but the present is blindingly short-lived. Therefore, sotto voce, into the future, infinity. Nothing there is guaranteed. This is just how it is. And I'm going to end this reading with one of my own poems that just means styled in the way that I had written before I encountered Etel Adnan. And it's called In the 4 a.m. and it's for my wife, Chris Fox. The chorusing rain, so ravishing, we rush out of the house to make love, a before dawn silvery love, the cupped radiance, street lights bright as upswelling joy. The rain so glamorous, we light up 2 cigarettes, our backs puddled in boulevard grass. Under bare trees, we study the miniature teardrop chandeliers, blow collapsible smoke into felled funnels of wet. The rain so clamorous, our breathing slows as though we've started to live underground. In Montreal, I wanted to make love on Mount Royal, wintertime, especially in winter, to climb the low slope, blankets in sacks for the snow, to press small warming dents under the boughs. My husband at the time declining the white invitation, though I asked more than once. But tonight, this soft, fizzly falling, this rain insistent as pins, the contact so unmistakable, murmurous, cool, the undertones, the universe falling again and again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arleen. Excuse me. And yes, I think Yvonne and Michelle are going to join us too. Thank you, all 3 of you, Arleen, Yvonne, Michelle. What a beautiful trio we've heard read tonight. I can't think of a better way to celebrate National Poetry Month than hearing the 3 of you read from your collections. I also really want to thank your publishers, that's Caitlin Press and the University of Alberta Press, both for publishing these really, truly amazing collections, as well as helping arrange the event tonight. Bookstores are completely reliant on publishers to publish these fantastic books that we can't then sell the books if they haven't been published. We can't host these wonderful events. So thank you, Caitlin and University of Alberta Press. And thanks to each of you in the audience tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us and to listen to these wonderful readings. We do have the books for sale and we do have autographed copies. I think I mentioned that before. So there's a link in the chat that you can follow, or you can just search for the books on our website as well. Or of course, if you are here in Victoria, you can just come on in. But thank you again, the three of you. This has been so lovely and wonderful. And I just wish we could host readings every night. And maybe you could just like read me to sleep. Like maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Yay, I'm so glad. And this event has been recorded, so I know some of you maybe joined us a little bit late. We will be sending out the recording next week sometime, and that'll go out to everyone who's registered and whether they made it or not. So again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, hugs.
Oh yes, the hug.
The hug.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.